Welcome to this second technique video in this series on adding beads to crochet. In the previous video, you saw what happens when you pre-string your beads and you add the bead in between stitches. In this video, you'll see what happens when you add the bead in the middle of making the stitch. And as with the previous video, I will demonstrate the technique first, and then I'll discuss the pros and cons of doing it this way. So let's get started. I'm in double crochet. I have finished a row, and I have worked my turning chains. So I have essentially finished a stitch, and I am between stitches. I'm ready to start the next stitch. I'm going to work a plain double crochet. As I do, I will show you where the opportunities are for sliding a bead into position. Double crochet starts with a yarn over. So right now is my first option for adding a bead. Then I insert my hook and I pull up a loop. I am anchoring my new stitch to my fabric. This is my second option, my second opportunity. Yarn over and pull through 2 loops. I only have 2 loops left on my hook. My next maneuver is going to finish this double crochet. So this is my third and final opportunity to add a bead. Yarn over and finish off. Notice with double crochet I have 3 opportunities during the stitch. In single crochet I only have 1 because single crochet doesn't have a yarn over at the beginning. Single crochet is simply anchor, and already I only have 2 loops on the hook. The next maneuver will finish off the single crochet. So this would be your only option if you're in single crochet. But if you're in double crochet, you have 3 options. Let's see what each of those looks like. So yarn over, and here's option 1. I slide the bead up. There's my bead. Then anchor. Pull through and finish off. So that was option 1. Here's option 2. Yarn over, anchor. Now I slide the bead up. Pull through, finish off. So that was the second option. And here's the third option. Yarn over, anchor, pull through. Now at the very end, slide the bead up into position and finish off. And for some silly fun, let's see what happens if we add 2 beads on 1 double crochet. So yarn over and anchor, and I'll slide up the beads. There's the first bead. Yarn over and pull through, and then the second bead. Yarn over and finish off. And then I will do another double crochet, a plain one, just to clean things up, and we'll look at what we got. The pros and cons of this technique are very similar to the same pros and cons of the first technique because both of them involve pre-stringing the beads. So if you're in all one color of bead, it's not too bad. If you have multiple colors, you have to worry about stringing them in the right order. It's a pain to fix if you strung them in the wrong order. Also, if you have a lot of beads, you're pulling yarn through lots of beads. That can make the yarn abrade and make it weak, and that could cause your project to break and come apart, so that's not good. On the positive side, once beads are strung, they're not going anywhere, so you can toss the project in your bag and go. The project is portable. The most obvious difference between the second technique and the first technique is the beads here have a vertical orientation rather than a horizontal orientation. If you have a bead like this little heart-shaped bead, for example, that might matter. You probably want that bead to be this way, not sideways or upside down for that matter. So depending on the bead, the vertical orientation might matter. Then there's the question of reversibility. As you can see, when I do this, I seem to end up with the beads on the opposite side of the fabric from the side I worked from. So you see my beads are all over on the other side. It seems to me like this fabric doesn't really want to be reversible. I mean, I can push the beads through to the other side. So I can do that, and I'll flip it over and you can see, you know, there they are on the other side. But it seems to me in this technique like the beads want to be on one side of the fabric or the other. So I don't really think this technique is reversible. Again, on the other hand, this might be a positive because you are ending up with a layer of soft, warm fabric up against your skin in between you and a cold, hard bead. So maybe that's a good thing. Although, you see how the beads sit up on the fabric and they're only attached with one strand of yarn. Now that was true in the previous video, but in that case the bead sort of nestled in between the posts of two stitches and I wasn't as bothered by it. Here, this looks like trouble to me. This looks like an opportunity for something to catch and pull and tear and go bad. So I might do this maybe on a collar. I wouldn't do it on a cuff or on a part of a garment that is likely to receive hardware because I just don't think it would last. And let's look at where the bead really sits in the structure of the fabric. I have single crochet here at the bottom, and the bead sits right in front of the single crochet post. Double crochet, there are sort of two legs that anchor the bottom of the stitch, that anchor the post. If you use option 1, the bead ends up on the left of those two legs. Whereas if you do option 2, the bead ends up on the right of those two legs. And if you do option 3, the bead also ends up drifting to the right. Options 1 and 2, the bead is fairly low on the post. So there's the post and you see the bead is low to the left or low to the right. Whereas in option 3, the bead is up near the top of the post, but it's way over to the right. And you see when I worked 2 on 1 double crochet, they don't quite line up. Even though this is the one that leans more to the right, the top one still leans even farther to the right. So make of that what you will. And then the last thing I want to mention is because the beads are sitting on the posts, they don't interfere with the chain across the top. So when you go to work your next row, you don't have to think about where your crochet hook goes. The chain looks like exactly what you expect, and you can just work as normal. So there you are. That's what happens when you pre-string your beads and you add the bead into position in the middle of working a stitch. The next two videos will show you what happens when, instead of pre-stringing your beads, you add the beads as you go. See you at the next video. Happy crochet!